Well, hey everybody, this is Greg here with GHC Interactive. We are live for another episode of the Aviation Growth Podcast. Joining me today is Jay Gallagher from the Aviation Search Group. Jay, how's it going?
Good. A little cold here in Pennsylvania. We're actually working from home because we got snowed in, but other than that, good. How about yourself?
Not too bad. As you know, we're down in Florida. We had a cold front come through. It was like 46 degrees this morning. So this is our chilly season. As I mentioned, we had a few tornadoes that came through over the weekend, but for the most part, didn't do too much damage. But how many inches did you get up there?
We're looking at about 16 inches outside of my house right now. And in some spots, a couple feet because we live on top of a big hill and the snowdrift just loves to come into my yard and driveway.
Awesome. That sounds fun. I don't really miss living up north anymore.
No, I've grown past it.
But anyway, glad to have you on.
Absolutely.
Why don't we get started with maybe just kind of a quick intro? Maybe you could tell us a little bit about Aviation Search Group, like what you guys do, what you focus on, and then maybe a little bit of a background on yourself.
Okay, absolutely. My name is Jay Gallagher. As you mentioned earlier, I'm the managing director of Aviation Search Group, and what we do there is we're an executive level search firm. And by that, I mean we work on a retained basis as a recruiting firm for our clients. We focus on aviation exclusive jobs, director level and above.
Okay.
We will work with pilots and mechanics as well, but our specialty is, your directors, presidents, VPs, C-suite positions, things along those lines. And on a retained basis, we partner with our clients. Our client list is a little smaller than what you might see with your large-scale recruiting firms, but that's by design because we partner with our clients as a total outsource on their hiring, and we work jobs start to finish, and we kind of view ourselves as a part of your company.
Okay, cool. And how long has Aviation Search Group been around for?
As a company, we've been around a little over 20 years. We have two owners that started the company together. They both come from aviation. One was a president of a helicopter MRO and sales facility on the West Coast, and that's where he met the other owner, and they just kind of came up with the idea because they saw a need for it in the market, and they moved to Texas to start it from there, and that's where our corporate headquarters are, and the one owner moved up here to the operational headquarters because this is where he's from outside of Pittsburgh. So
okay, gotcha. And so how long have you been at ASG, and how did you get involved in the business?
I'm a relatively new hire, actually, at ASG.
Okay.
I started this past September in 2021.
Okay.
Before that, I was an A&P mechanic. I worked as a maintenance manager at a 145 repair station, corporate jets primarily, Hawkers, citations, things along those lines.
Sure.
I met the owner of our company at our local field. He owns a Piper Cub. And we became acquainted because he had asked me to do some sheet metal work on his airplane. That's my specialty. And it's kind of a funny story how one thing led to another. I always was very proud of how good I am at sheet metal and like how particular I am. And he has a nice, beautiful airplane, and it was the biggest mistake I've ever made on an airplane. I put an access cut an access panel out for his airplane, put it in. It looked perfect, but it was a big Piper Cub with the giant oversized tires, and nothing's level in that airplane. I put the panel in crooked, and it just looked terrible to me. And he's a perfectionist like I am, so he immediately, snap of a finger noticed it.
Yeah.
And I thought, oh man, this guy's, a big shaker in the aviation industry. My career is over. And then one thing led to another, but he liked my work ethic and my background from there. So that's kind of what led me to working for him.
Okay. And did you fix the sheet metal problem?
I did, as best as I could. I actually had to call in the big guns. I had to call my dad in to help.
Okay.
Because he's a metal worker and he's a master at it, so I was able to have him come in and help a little.
Gotcha. And so, coming from, you have a maintenance background, and now you join this organization, how's that transition been? I wouldn't say that that's a typical kind of like career progression from what I've seen. So how did that come about, and how's that going for you?
It's definitely a different transition going from a maintenance floor to an office environment every day, but I've always had the career goals to be a business leader, a executive, like a senior vice president role, C-suite eventually. So when I got out of the Air Force, I used my GI Bill to go to school, and I had been going to school at night and online the entire time since I've been out and working as an A&P, and it's been pretty grueling the last 4 or 5 years, but one thing led to another to get me to this point, and that was always my goal, was to change the narrative on my career past being just a mechanic in the maintenance world.
Gotcha. And so, how's business going for you guys?
Very good. I'm sure, as all of your listeners are aware, there are not enough workers in the world in general, and especially aviation. So we're getting a lot of business because a lot of our clients are having a difficult time hiring and finding, good talent.
Sure. And so what, I guess it seems like everybody is hiring, and there's definitely a shortage, from whether it's, mechanics to pilots to sales leaders to directors of aviation. So, I mean, would you say that's kind of the biggest obstacle that the companies that you're working with are dealing with? Like, what are you running into, especially now over the last 2 years? It seems like, things have obviously changed. What are you finding the biggest obstacles are in getting new people into organizations?
One of the biggest problems is, or difficulties is, if someone wants a job, they already have one, to be quite honest.
Right.
So typically the talent that you're looking for already is employed and doesn't realize that they're looking for a new job.
Mm-hmm.
So that's a huge part. Top down, I mean, there's companies that are struggling to find C-suite executives, vice presidents, all the way down to line service representatives at your local airport. So that's typically where the biggest challenge is finding that, top level talent right now, because, talent isn't looking for a job per se.
Sure. And would you say that the companies that are searching for candidates are having to maybe change up their approach or change certain things at their company to attract people? Because trying to entice people to leave a current position to move, what's that like?
Right. Kind of to backtrack a little, just posting a job online now is really not working for companies anymore, because you have to be aggressive with your hiring. And that's what we recommend to our clients that aren't retaining us for certain positions as well, even for staffing level positions, to get aggressive, to offer relocation packages, try to be in an attractive area, or a lot over the last 2 years with the pandemic, if you have the ability, allow someone to work from home a little bit and remote base, make your positions more attractive, as we're seeing, like, generationally. I think I lost you.
Sure. Are you there?
Yes. Sorry, your camera went out.
Okay. No
okay,
worries.
I can keep going. I guess we can edit this.
Okay. Yeah.
Oh. But as I was saying, with a lot of what we're seeing today, candidates are looking for that attractive package, and they're looking for fulfillment in their work. So, you need to offer more than just a high-level financial compensation package, for example.
Gotcha. And regarding the compensation, are you seeing that salaries and total compensation packages in this industry are starting to move up?
That's definitely what we're seeing. Salaries and compensation is getting very competitive, company to company, is what we're realizing, and people aren't willing to settle anymore, because if you're willing to move in this industry, quite frankly, you don't have to settle. And I think people are starting to realize that. And for a long time, I'm sure, as you're well aware, there's been a few certain sectors of our industry that were a little, I wouldn't say underpaid, but they haven't risen with the rest of, I guess, the global economy for salaries, for example. I know the maintenance world, because that's where I come from specifically. A lot of those salaries have just been kind of left behind a little, and they're seeing major growth right now.
That's good to hear, just because, I've seen a lot of people actually not only, move to different roles within the industry, but potentially leave the industry for opportunities, for, engineering type roles in other industries where, there's a lot of other industries that are booming at the same time, and they've been able to really bring that number up. And so it's good to hear that we're starting to see some increases in the compensation for some of these different roles throughout the industry.
Oh, definitely. And a few years before these salaries started rising, that's definitely something they saw was individuals leaving to other industries because at the end of the day, you have to feed your family and put bread on the table, and that's why we all go to work. So
yeah, for sure. And so, are there particular roles that you're finding like the most demand for right now?
I would say the most demand we see is in your operational level roles, starting with I would say every single FBO in the country, if you ask them today, they cannot find line service technicians. But then above that, we as well, mechanics, pilots, your operational type people. It's just there is not enough workers in the industry. And as we know, the retirement age for 121 pilots is at 65, and there's that mass retirement coming up, and there's not as many people entering the industry as there are leaving. And that goes the same with mechanics, that the average age of a A&P technician right now is, I think, 55 or 56 years old.
Yeah.
Which means in 10 years, that group of people is retiring, if they're not already.
Has there been, I know especially, 2020 on the commercial side of aviation, things really slowed down while things were still moving pretty good on the business aviation side of things. How did that impact the workforce? Did you guys see people moving from the commercial side into different segments of the industry?
Yes, actually, there was quite an influx, for example, of pilots, that were getting those layoffs and stuff and needed to remain current, that came back to business aviation. And a lot of them have stayed too, which has been very nice for the business aviation sector to get some talent that they may have lost 20 years ago, for example, or 10 years ago.
Sure.
And a lot of those people have started coming back to, your Part 135 world or your cargo world.
Sure. And so, looking at, I guess, and the other question I had for you too, I guess, was around really like the geographic locations. Are there particular areas that you're starting to see maybe a boom and a demand for people?
Absolutely.
Whether it's at, particular airports or just particular regions?
Absolutely. The West Coast definitely is a booming area, in particular the state of California. We're seeing a lot of positions come available there. Due to a couple reasons. One, there's an influx of people, as you're aware, leaving California, and that includes a lot of aviation people. So there's been a lot of salary increases, compensation increases to bring people back to California. And your standard Florida and the Dallas-Fort Worth area are major aviation growth areas, especially that Dallas-Fort Worth area. There's a lot of major companies there, but something people might not be aware of is one of the largest growing areas in the country is a little town named Fairmont, West Virginia. It's one of the greatest growing areas for especially maintenance personnel, aircraft engineers, aeronautical engineers, things along those lines, and it's projected to grow for the next 10 years. They are continuing to invest in that airport, invest in bringing people into their area, and that's about an hour south of where our offices are. And my wife and I fly down there quite frequently for lunch, and every time we go there, it seems like there's another hangar up for construction and another subdivision being put in.
Sure. And I guess for because there's all this demand right now, and I guess for companies that have historically done their recruiting internally, maybe they have a head of HR, or maybe they've just been doing it, the director of aviation does it, or maybe an executive at the company does it. I guess what are the differences, and kind of what are you guys bringing to the table in regards to finding people and getting them placed?
Well, a couple things. To backtrack to that one individual doing the hiring, for example, something we like to tell people is the cost of a bad hire completely outweighs any sort of recruiting service fee that you might have to pay, or even not having that position for a little while you really wait for that correct talent. For example, we were kind of doing some math in the office last week. If someone were to make a $100,000 salary and their direct official was at 150 a year, and it took say 3 months to fill that role and 3 months to train that person up, you're looking at over $50,000 in of a loss if that individual doesn't work out, and then you still have to start the process over.
Sure.
So that's definitely a driving factor towards potentially outsourcing your recruiting and hiring efforts, especially for those high-level roles with high-level compensation. Kind of what we offer and bring to the table is we're able to reach the entire industry. We have we mass market positions. We have an internal database that's obviously been being built for over 20 years, and it's extremely robust. And I don't think there's many other companies globally that would have as many people as we do. I know there's a few other companies that are similar in size that probably do, but there's that. And then targeting key companies that have the individuals you're looking for and finding someone that could come in and be a cultural fit.
Sure. And so I guess from the candidate side of things, for people that I know there's a lot of people in this industry that have been in a particular role for quite some time, right? There's a lot of people that have been within roles for, 10, 15, 20 years. And I think that in a lot of the people that I'm talking to, they're starting to think about, wow, I see all of this activity. I see that there's some opportunities out there. What are you what are you talking with candidates about? And what would you, I guess, recommend for people that maybe have been comfortable in a role for some time, but are maybe starting to explore some of the opportunities out there?
Yes, a lot of those candidates, we focus on telling them, look at the growth opportunities that are out there for you right now that you didn't realize were there or haven't honestly been paying attention to for 10 to 15 years. Like you said, those really long-term people. And another thing is we always, I personally recommend, don't be afraid to change the narrative on your career. A lot of times people get stuck in these roles so long that that's the only thing they think of themselves as, and people view them as myself, for example. I was concerned that everyone would always just think of me as a good mechanic, and that's it. And there's nothing wrong with being that. It's something to be proud of, but I wanted something different professionally for myself. And even when I left, a coworker said, "Why would you quit this job? You're such a good mechanic." And that was kind of my fear. And what I recommend to people is don't be afraid to change that narrative and step a little outside of your comfort zone, because that helps you grow professionally and you could have more than one asset to yourself.
Sure. Yeah, I see, I see a lot of people that have a lot of really good skills, and they kind of maybe are looking at their career path in a very linear fashion, where it's like, you maybe have mechanic, in your case, maybe, mechanic, lead mechanic, senior mechanic, crew chief, and then director of maintenance. And I think a lot of people, not that, obviously these are great positions and great roles, and I think great opportunities along with great compensation. But not everybody is happy in those particular, going down that linear fashion, and taking the skills that you have built up and that knowledge. I think you can easily take that, move into a different type of role, whether it's, a different part of the operation or a different segment of the industry. Obviously, there's a lot of learning that goes into that, but all that stuff that you've accumulated in your career so far is really valuable and could really make a big impact wherever you bring it.
Oh, absolutely. So, absolutely. Like you said it best, your director of maintenance people, some people might view that as the highest level you might be able to go in aviation, but your small 145 repair stations, those director of maintenances, they manage a P&L. They do, all the hiring and firing of their shop. They do the sales of their services. Those are all great skills that could definitely transition into immediate business leaders. Throughout the industry. They learn how to talk to high net worth individuals, things along those lines.
Yeah, for sure. And so, obviously there's a shortage that everybody is talking about, from mechanics to pilots to line at FBOs. I guess, how are you guys approaching bringing people into this industry? And are you placing people that are coming from outside industries?
We are. We actually do focus a lot on outside industry. We have a lot of sales director roles, for example, and quite frankly, a good salesman, like as my dad always said, could sell anything.
Yeah.
So we focus on, a lot of companies have jet cards, for example. So we focus on bringing people in that might have sold other type of high-level membership programs to other companies. Yacht sales, for example, people that sell shares of using a yacht. That individual would understand that club membership, the timeshare, and they could easily transition into aviation sales, for example.
Sure. And the other thing, we had talked about was, I know that you were in the Air Force. That's where you started your career and moved into the civil side of aviation. I know that you've started working with veterans. Can you tell me a little bit about, your approach there and what you're doing?
Yes, absolutely. It's very small scale, kind of grassroots. I link myself with veterans that are transitioning out of the Air Force or even have been out for a while. Most recently, I was working with someone that's been out for probably about 8 years and is had his A&P license, and he's just struggled to find stable employment in the next steps. And a lot of that is, though the military's done a good job with trying to help with that transition, they just really aren't accustomed to civilian life and finding jobs. So I tell people how to write their own resumes. I don't like to do things for individuals because I like them to learn for themselves. So I'll help them with resume assistance, kind of show them different avenues in the aviation world, because myself, for example, in the Air Force, I learned so much just as a crew chief on the B-1 bomber. And quite frankly, if you tell people you worked on a bomber, that doesn't really transition much into flying passengers around, but you still learn all the same equipment. You still learn management skills. You still learn budgetary skills, because I had to manage a budget with purchasing equipment and things along those lines still, even though the government uses a little bit of a different budget process than your civilian company would, because a profit's not a focus.
Sure.
But those individuals just need to know that they have a skill set that's extremely valuable, and they just need to know how to word it professionally to someone to be able to find that long-term employment. So I reach out to people, and a lot of it's word of mouth. People have been coming to me asking, "Hey, can you view my resume?" Or, "Hey, I'm in Nashville. What kind of work is out there?" And I kind of link them to websites like JS Firm, for example, is I would say the number one website in aviation if you're looking for a job. If your information is not on JS Firm and you're looking for a job, that's the first mistake you made.
Yeah, sure. And how about with LinkedIn? I know that, the LinkedIn community of aviation professionals seems to be growing pretty quickly, especially over the last few years. And that's actually that's how we got connected as well as on LinkedIn. Any recommendations for people in regards to, either their LinkedIn profile or, building their network or, creating content to get their kind of brand or image out there?
Absolutely. Like you said, we were connected through LinkedIn from someone that I connected through LinkedIn with. And they were on an episode with you previously, Jordan Scales, and like he said it best, at the end of this episode, create a LinkedIn if you don't have one.
Yeah.
It's extremely important in today's world, professionally, to have a LinkedIn. I'm on it every single day. What I would recommend to people is look at that part of the industry you want to be in. If you want to be in sales, for example, start adding those sales individuals. People are very outgoing and open to questions on LinkedIn. Build that network. Ask people that have been in those roles, hey, how did you get here, for example? What should I do? And target those companies that you want to work for and add individuals from those companies. Really build that network. I try to put content up at least once a week about myself or with my company. I would recommend that as well, just so people can see who you are. Don't be afraid to post stuff personally as well. Maybe a picture with your dog, something like that, letting them know who you are as a person.
Yeah, for sure. I think that's something that's really cool that LinkedIn has brought to the industry is just bringing more of that kind of personal feel and getting to kind of see maybe a little bit more into the day-to-day. And I think that's also just social media in general has also helped in, I guess, attracting people to this industry as well. the amount of content around, business aviation or aviation in general that's available on YouTube or LinkedIn or Instagram has really, I think, opened people's eyes to, what's available. And it's been somewhat of a, I don't know, of a closed off industry, but maybe something that hasn't been front and center for a lot of maybe younger people looking to, pursue a career in a particular industry. And so there's a lot of good stuff that I'm seeing out there lately that I think is enticing for people to join.
A lot of what I've seen in the past is people don't know how to get into aviation, to be honest, if they don't know someone from aviation. And I was the same way. I don't even think I've ever flown on an airplane until I joined the Air Force. Quite frankly, never even thought about anything to do with aviation until I just ended up in the Air Force one day. And people I've talked to in the past, I'm a pilot as well, and they always ask me, how do you get into flying? I thought you had to be a pilot in the military or have a parent that was an airline pilot. Those are the only ways they thought about it. And
right.
I think LinkedIn would really helps people connect with those possibilities to get into aviation, and people don't realize that.
Yeah, for sure. Well, cool. Kicking off 2022 here. I mean, anything, any plans, projects, things that you guys are working on for this year?
Yes, absolutely. We are attending a few different conferences coming up here shortly. We'll be at HAI Heli Expo in Dallas, and then right after that, we'll be at Women in Aviation in Nashville, both in March. I'll be at both of those events. If anybody's listening and going to those events, please stop by our booth and come say hello and grab a couple free mints.
Awesome. And where can people find you in general?
You can find us on LinkedIn. Myself, everyone on my team is on LinkedIn. And then as well, aviationsearchgroup.com. And those are about the two best ways to contact us for sure.
All right. Awesome. Well, I appreciate you coming on. It's been good to connect, and we'll stay in touch. And maybe I'll see you at HAI.
Absolutely. I'm looking forward to it.
All right. Thank you.
All right. We'll see you.